What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we make our final preparations and we get ready for the preseason debut of this Aaron Glenn, Justin Fields version of the Jets against the Green Bay Packers. And what we're going to do here on Fridays, and even Fridays going into the season, one of the things we got to talk about is an injury report, right? Because we've seen some guys missing practice this week. We have seen what has been said this week. So let's get ourselves ready for preseason game number 1 against Green Bay. And the first thing you need to know is that there will be a few key players that are missing. I think the biggest name is rookie tight end Mason Taylor. He's expected now to miss around a week with an ankle sprain. What I think is interesting is that means Jeremy Ruckert, that means Stone Smart may have an opportunity in snaps at the tight end position with the first team. And remember, Jeremy Ruckert played with Justin Fields at Ohio State, so that provides an opportunity. We've seen Mason Taylor make a ton of plays. I think we're going to be just fine there, and I think discretion and caution is the better part of valor as it relates to Mason Taylor. He's made a bunch of plays in training camp. We want him to be that next weapon for Justin Fields. Another guy who missed some practice this week, this with back spasms, was Will McDonald, and I think that's okay as well. Let's be conservative with Will McDonald. He has flashed. He has looked undeniable. His spin move, his power moves. We've heard Aaron Glenn talk about, oh, he's up to 240 pounds. We've heard offensive linemen say how hard it is to deal with him this year. So a lot of people even think that he could be a 15-sack kind of guy. Let's be cautious with him as well. Tyrod Taylor is going to been dealing with a knee injury. It's not expected to be serious. What I think is important on this one is that opens the door, because listen, Justin Fields is only going to play, if at all, a series, a quarter, right? We're not going to risk Justin Fields. So that means a lot of the game is going to be played by Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook. And I think that gives both of those guys an opportunity to really show up and show out against different competition, right? Remember, Adrian Martinez, the UFL MVP with the Birmingham Stallions, has that dual threat ability as well. So we could run kind of the same packages, the same plays, and same scheme. And Brady Cook also really tested well athletically at the combine at Missouri. Remember, had Armand Membu blocking for him at Missouri. So we'll get probably an extended look at both of them. Also on the D-line, Quinnen Williams, still out with that calf injury, and now Byron Cowart is dealing with an ankle injury. So I want to see Leonard Taylor, who has flashed late last year. Also Derek Nottie, who is supposed to be that run stuffer, right? They're going to have an opportunity against the Green Bay Packers to show that they can stop the run. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about here when it comes to that first game against the Green Bay Packers. Now, the other thing that has been really talked about this week is that the passing game does not look as great, that Justin Fields has missed some throws. Who's going to be that wide out too? Well, Keenan Allen has in fact signed back with the Los Angeles Chargers. I told you we're not going to go there. I continue to think that we're going to cobble this together with a lot of different guys that can play roles, with guys like Mason Taylor, who I mentioned at the tight end position, and we'll talk about Breece a little bit later on. But Aaron Glenn has kept on saying that Justin Fields is really improving and is doing fine. He goes, check this out. I think he's really improving. I really do. When you go back and look at the tape, there are some throws that he's made that are really good throws. And we have to make sure that we catch. So it goes both ways with some of the throws he's got to make, and some of the guys got to make catches. I'm excited about that player and the things he's going to be able to create for us. Every day, he's just got to continue to chop wood, and the type of person he is, he's going to continue to do that. And so I also remind you, with some of these passing game metrics, right? His completion percentage, his passer rating, the percent of drives that have turned into scores for his team, literally since his rookie year, has gone up every single year. Now, as I've detailed here on Jets Latest, to a above league average level. So if he just continues to go ahead and make that development, I think we will be just fine. We've heard Tanner Engstrand and others say that, Josh Reynolds, for example, who's been in Detroit, that it is a complicated system, that it does take time, but that Justin Fields is a smart player being able to do it. And remember, this, I believe, is going to be a run-heavy team anyway. And Justin Fields will certainly add to that, really on par with guys like Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, in terms of his potential in the run game as well. That has never been something to deny about Justin Fields. And another part of this passing game that is really getting kind of a lot of buzz, and we're seeing a lot in training camp, we've talked about it before, I want to talk about it again, is Breece Hall out of the backfield. Earlier in the week, you heard Aaron Glenn talking directly to Breece Hall saying, you're a mismatch. We're going to open up this part of the game a lot. And, part of that is also confidence from the quarterback. And guess what? Justin Fields is starting to have more and more confidence and more excitement about Breece Hall and his hands out of the backfield. Check this out. He goes, when I first got to the Jets, Breece Hall's hands surprised me. I saw a highlight from the Titans game last year. That TD he caught, you can tell which guys have natural hands, and he does. He had a number of catches yesterday from the receiver spot, the slot, and coming out of the backfield to catch the ball. He is a great weapon to have, and I'm sure we're going to utilize him in that way. And so the fact that the quarterback sees that as a weapon, because listen, when the bullets are flying, right? And maybe your first read is covered. We talk about the second wide receiver not being somebody elite. Knowing that you have that check down, that dump off, that safety blanket option, and getting the ball into Breece Hall's hands, and then him being able to make a play is really important. And I keep on making the comparison to Jahmyr Gibbs. I keep on telling you how in this offense he can play that role, and that he was already one of the better receiving backs in the NFL. I mean, look, the receiving yards last year, the catches out of the backfield last year, the yards per reception last year, and also 5 catches of 20 or more yards, that kind of explosive play out of the backfield. That was also in the top 5. So plenty of reasons to believe that Breece Hall can be a weapon out of the backfield. And like I say, these wide receivers haven't been catching the ball. Aaron Glenn says we all need to get better. We all need to pick it up. Sure. Okay, whether you believe in Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, guys like Tyler Johnson and others, there is also Mason Taylor, who has great hands and has been flashing. There is also Breece Hall, who has great chops out of the backfield and has shown it at the NFL level. So I think that is definitely important as well. The question is, are we going to see any of that against the Green Bay Packers in preseason game 1? I'm excited to see it tomorrow. I know you guys are too. Next week, we will continue to talk about what happened against the Packers and what is going on during training camp. But that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Wanted to give you the kind of thumbnail sketch on the injury report, the guys that are dealing with injuries, how we're approaching them, how we're developing here in the passing game, and what role I believe Breece Hall is going to play and how that is big. Let me talk about some of the comments from you guys. Thank you for continuing to grow this Jets Latest channel. I tell you all the time, watch, like, subscribe, tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. And you could always engage with me in the comments on social media at Spittin' Speeds. We've got Raphael123 ABC saying, beat Pittsburgh Rodgers to open the season. Let's go Jets. Obviously, that is going to be a big one with this kind of revenge game going after it. And we've heard guys like Jermaine Johnson and others saying that they want to get after Aaron Rodgers. So I think that's going to be a big one. Christopher Phillips, 520, says, you can't just run the ball. We'll get run blitz to death. And don't get me wrong, I agree. We've seen good stuff in the run game, but we are going to have to pass the ball as well. Let's not forget, we've got Garrett Wilson. And listen, we've heard Aaron Glenn say, if they double team Garrett Wilson, he trusts his guys like Arian Smith, Josh Reynolds, Mason Taylor, and now even Breece Hall out of the backfield to kind of beat their matchups and be part of this passing game. And then Cindy Sturgis, 7127, says, of the Jets players, who could I consider for my fantasy team? Remember, I'm on the SiriusXM Fantasy channel, FTN Fantasy, always hosting shows, giving you what you need to win your leagues and win that cash. So I appreciate the question, Cindy. It always depends on your league and your league settings. But what I will say is Garrett Wilson is a back-end wide receiver 1, or at the very least a high-end wide receiver 2. He has put up that kind of production, and we expect him to get more targets, more opportunity this year. So I think Garrett Wilson can be targeted in the second round as a back-end wide receiver 1. I think Justin Fields is someone who you should seriously consider as a QB1, a back-end QB1. I believe, and most rankings, sites, whatever, believe that the top 5 quarterbacks are the top 4 dual threats, right? Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, right? And then Joe Burrow as kind of the number 1 pocket passer. Then you get guys like your other pocket passers that are going to throw for 4,500 yards, right? Your Baker Mayfields, your Patty Mahomeses, right? That's already 7. Then the back end of QB1, you have other dual threat options, okay? Guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Bo Nix, and I say guys like Justin Fields, who are going to be just as good as any of those other dual threat quarterbacks that are not truly at the top of the food chain. And I think you can get Justin Fields off the board as like QB 8 or 9 in the 6th round and be just fine. I do in general like waiting on quarterback, but you got to check your league settings to see the value of passing touchdowns versus running and stuff like that, okay? I would also say, besides Garrett Wilson and obviously Justin Fields, Breece Hall is interesting. I think Breece Hall is a high-end RB2, and especially with all of these reports about him in the passing game in PPR formats, I think he will be even better, okay? And then later on, if you're in a fantasy kind of a dynasty keeper league, the idea of Braylon Allen, I think, becomes very interesting if you want to hold on to him, stash him for what could be on the horizon next year, depending on what we do with Breece Hall. But that'll do it for this episode. Like I said, if you're into fantasy, hit me up. Check me out on Sirius. But if you're here for the JETS, Jets, I will be back next week talking about everything that happened against the Green Bay Packers in the preseason opener and talking about how we keep it moving in training camp. It is going to be an exciting season. I'm excited to see what the product looks like on the field, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to discuss next week. But until then, that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. We out of here. Peace.